Ways narcissists destroy your physical health.
Ways a narcissist is killing you slowly. Have you ever felt like the life is being slowly drained out of you? Like there's an invisible force sucking away your vitality, piece by piece? For too many people, that force has a name, and it's the narcissist in their life. Whether it's the narcissistic boss who belittles you constantly, the spouse whose manipulation is inescapable, or the parent whose selfish demands never end, narcissistic abuse is like a malignant cancer eroding your sense of self, your joy, and even your physical health. In this video, we're going to rip the mask off these toxic vampires and expose the very real medically proven ways they are killing you slowly through their mind games and abuse. Staying in their path of destruction is quite literally putting your life at risk. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to this channel. The information in this video exposes how narcissistic abuse can quite literally make you physically ill over time by disrupting your body's hormonal systems and increasing disease risks. Subscribing helps spread awareness of just how toxic these relationships are, not just emotionally, but physiologically. Learning these truths may be the wake-up call you need to prioritize your health and get free. So brace yourself as we dive into the psychological warfare narcissists wage and how it leads to diagnosable conditions like CPT, PTSD, autoimmune disorders, strokes, and more. You'll never see these malignant manipulators the same way again.
The narcissist psychological torture chamber. Destroying your reality from the inside out.
To understand how narcissists compromise your physical health, we first need to look at the psychological torture chamber they trap you in. With calculated mind games, they insidiously erode your sense of reality, self-worth, and safety. The gaslighting husband, for instance, may fluctuate between intense love bombing and vicious verbal assaults, leaving his wife feeling constantly off-kilter and questioning her own perceptions and memories. Maybe I am just crazy, like he says, she finds herself thinking, trapped in a mental prison of his making. The narcissistic parent raises their child in a constant state of insecurity and inadequacy through carelessly broken promises, volatile moods, and a puppet master's control over their offspring's sense of acceptance and self-esteem. And the arrogant, exploitative boss creates a toxic atmosphere where anxious employees walk on eggshells, constantly fearing verbal lashings, unfair criticism, and imagining being fired or punished for the slightest shortcoming. In each scenario, the narcissist's unrelenting mind games foster a state of hypervigilance and perpetual fear in their victims. And it's this chronic psychological stress that acts as the trigger for a cavalcade of physical ailments.
The cortisol curse. How narcissists' mind games erode your body.
At the core of narcissistic abuse's physical impacts lies one pernicious hormone, cortisol. Often called the stress hormone, cortisol is released by the adrenal glands in response to real or perceived threats. In short bursts, cortisol can boost energy levels and immune function, preparing you to handle acute stressors like outrunning a bear. But when cortisol remains chronically elevated, as it does for victims locked in the narcissist's psychological torture chamber, it metabolically behaves like a toxic sludge corroding your body from the inside out. Excessive cortisol causes your brain to remain stuck in a constant state of high alert, with detrimental impacts like disrupted sleep patterns and insomnia, anxiety, depression, and mental fog, headaches, and inexplicable fatigue, muscle tension, and pain, digestive issues like nausea, diarrhea, and acid reflux, hormonal imbalances that impact fertility.
The Widowmaker risks. Surviving narcissists' lethal cardiovascular attacks.
But cortisol's sinister effects don't stop at mental strain and discomfort. Chronically elevated levels can graduate into life-threatening territory by catalyzing severe cardiovascular issues. One of the cruelest tricks in the narcissist's book of torture is inducing panic attacks, anxiety attacks, and mental health shocks in their victims. In those moments, cortisol levels can spike a staggering 20-fold or higher. This sudden cortisol dump causes blood pressure to skyrocket, stresses the cardiovascular system, and even alters blood chemistry. Sustained over time, it contributes to atherosclerosis, hardening of the arteries, increasing risks for heart attacks, strokes, and even rupture of the body's main artery, an often fatal condition known as an aortic dissection or widowmaker. A narcissistic husband, terrifying his wife with explosive rage, fits, and threats. A narcissistic parent sending their child into trauma with caregiver-issued panic attacks. An egomaniacal boss threatening employees with baseless termination. Each creates a literal health crisis inside their victim. And even once the volatility passes, the long-lasting impacts of that cortisol dump linger on, slowly deteriorating the body's vascular highways from the inside out.
Paying the ultimate price. When narcissist abuse turns deadly.
Of course, narcissists engage in many other destabilizing behaviors beyond psychological fear-mongering. The pathological liar spouse undermining their partner's grasp on reality. The conniving colleague gossiping and spreading rumors to sabotage colleagues. The boundary-violating parent or grandparent who creeps on or inappropriately touches their own offspring. These sick brains wield trauma like a strategic weapon against their victims. And as we've seen, repeated psychological trauma doesn't just scar the mind, it severely compromises the body too. In fact, long-term studies show that narcissistic abuse in the PTSD, it causes create a 60% higher risk for cardiovascular issues like strokes and heart disease. Victims trapped by the manipulation face increased risks for autoimmune conditions like rheumatoid arthritis, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, and more. These degenerative impacts can accumulate over years or decades before manifesting as diagnosable, life-threatening conditions. But by then, it's often too late, as the damage can't be easily reversed simply by removing the narcissist from your life. So while narcissists may never physically strike their victims, make no mistake, they are still slowly killing their victims through psychological erosion and metabolically induced illness. Their cruelty, mind games, and manipulation are quite literally toxic, shortening lives and destroying health.
The only cure: no contact. To save yourself while narcissists destroy your physical health.
The good news is that there is a cure for the cortisol curse and terror inflicted by these malignant abusers. It may be difficult, it may require bravery, but it is proven effective: no contact. By finally cutting these toxic vampires out of your life completely and immediately, you can halt the cycle of psychological and physiological obliteration they've set in motion. Your cortisol levels, blood pressure, and mental state can begin returning to healthier baselines. The abused wife escaping her gaslighting husband's torture. The scapegoated employee finally quitting that narcissistic boss's domain of abuse. The survivor ending an enmeshed relationship with a narcissistic parent. Each act of no contact is like a life-saving shot of psychological insulin, stabilizing survivors and putting them on the road to recovery. Of course, establishing true no contact and remaining clear of narcissists' inescapable pull is easier said than done. Much like trying to quit an addiction, narcissistic abuse creates prolonged patterns in the brain that aren't easily broken. Many survivors require extensive counseling, coaching, and support groups to successfully escape these emotional vampires' clutches for good. But do it they must, because the alternative is far too bleak. Staying enmeshed with a narcissist is akin to streaking life. The damage they inflict compounds over time until the eventual collapse becomes inevitable. So regardless of how harrowing it feels to finally break free from these toxic bonds, remember it is a matter of life preservation and reclaiming your health before it's permanently ruined. The alternative is simply unacceptable.
Save your life by escaping narcissist slow kill.
Let's be clear, narcissistic abuse isn't just some figurative emotional affliction. It's a diagnosable condition rooted in repeated psychological trauma that physically compromises and deteriorates the body from the inside out. The only cure is permanently removing these toxic presences from your life through complete no contact. It's a difficult road, but a necessity because the alternative is allowing these malignant emotional vampires to kill you slowly through cortisol's prolonged curse. So don't become another statistic. Don't let the narcissist erode your mind, body, and spirit until one day you wake up too broken down to escape their grip. Heed the warnings, make an exit plan, and reclaim your health before it's permanently ruined by these emotional barrel bombs. Your life quite literally depends on it. Narcissistic abuse is more than just an emotional affliction. It's a diagnosable condition that compromises your physical health through repeated psychological trauma and hormonal imbalances like excessive cortisol. Over time, these manipulative relationships put you at higher risk for cardiovascular disease, autoimmune disorders, infertility issues, and more. Don't become another statistic. Prioritize your well-being by getting free and reclaiming your vitality before it's permanently ruined. Subscribe to keep learning how to recognize these toxic influences and take back control of your life and health.